Hi folks, I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, that's to say a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the chief medical officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive. So I am working from home, I'm self-isolating.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that is UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson revealing that he too has the coronavirus that's sweeping across the world. But with numbers doubling since last week to more than 730,000 cases and 33,000 deaths, it is the US that's now the hotspot, with the virus killing one New Yorker every 10 minutes and the country's top infectious diseases expert predicting up to 200,000 Americans could die. Back here in Australia, as we struggle to avoid that fate, the economy is grinding to a halt. And instead of crossing to panicked shoppers, reporters are now covering a far more serious story.
After 30 years of employment, I, like tens of thousands of other Australians, find myself in a dole queue.
I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning, and then they tell you you've got to make a claim online.
We can't pay the rent, and the girl with us, they live with us, can't pay the rent.
One of the hardest hit industries is travel and aviation, where tens of thousands of jobs have disappeared overnight. On the day Virgin Australia stood down 8,000 workers, the airline posted this moving moment from one of its final flights in New Zealand.
Remember that tough times don't last, tough people do. We're all in this together. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We truly hope to see you in the sky again soon. Kia kaha.
The theme that we're all in this together is proving popular with TV networks around the world. And at home, on 7...
We're all in this together, we're all a little bit frightened.
We really are all in this together.
And on 10...
Look after yourselves.
And look after each other.
Remember that we're all in this together.
And on Foxtel...
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
And that may well be true, unless, of course, you're ignoring social distancing rules, in which case the media will be coming to get you.
Running the gauntlet. Joggers again ignoring the warnings at Bondi this morning. Jumping safety fences, dodging the signs. Here, a surf life-saving crew literally chases one off the beach. Surfers too, waving the rules.
Are you above the rule?
I'm not above the rule.
So why are you going in a beach that's closed?
He didn't hang around to answer that question, but nor did 7, which was soon in inner Sydney on lunch patrol.
At this Alexandria cafe today, our cameras caught multiple offenders dining in.
We're just trying to work out why you've got a customer here sitting in your cafe.
The owner claimed he'd asked the customer to leave. The customer says the owner told him nothing.
Why are you sitting inside a cafe?
I'm eating lunch, man. I didn't know I had to take it out.
Well, he was sitting there right in front of you.
Meantime, The Age was targeting a more serious issue with the upper end of town when it revealed...
Wealthy couple return from skiing with coronavirus, then do not self-isolate.
The Age didn't name the couple, citing legal reasons, but it revealed plenty of detail about the, quote, wealthy finance industry figure and his partner who had returned from Aspen and were told to self-isolate.
Sources say they were soon spotted at shops in Sorrento and a nearby golf course.
And on Friday, the Herald Sun was also buying into Corona class war.
Rich and contagious.
Colorado ski trip cluster being tracked.
And the Australian too was hot on the story.
Melbourne's socialites have exploded in acrimony over the COVID-19 outbreak enveloping the city's wealthiest suburbs.
By Friday afternoon, beachgoers at St Kilda were also being targeted, while the Daily Mail was joining the hunt, shaming holidaymakers in Byron Bay for getting too close as they enjoyed the sunshine.
What coronavirus? Selfish locals and backpackers in Byron Bay continue to blatantly ignore social distancing as they soak up the sun.
And going even further in public shaming was 7, which chose to identify one of the first people in New South Wales to be fined for breaking quarantine regulations after she disobeyed a warning not to leave her house. We have blurred the image, they did not. And 9 News was also on her case, showing her face and door-stopping the husband.
We should have known better, but we didn't. So I'd like to apologise to everybody.
So, watch out. Rightly or wrongly, if you break the rules, the media is ready to name and shame you. And that's partly because coronavirus is the only story we're interested in. If you thought bushfires dominated the news last summer, think again. According to media monitoring group Stream, at its peak, the fires featured in 30% of news stories. The coronavirus is up around 80%. And even then, the public just can't get enough of it. The top-rating TV shows for the past week have all been commercial news bulletins. Last Wednesday, the ABC's 7pm bulletin had its highest metro ratings in 7 years, and readership of the major online news sites is up anywhere between 10 and 30% week on week. News Corp says it's also seeing a surge in new subscriptions, telling MediaWatch,
"No story we've ever told has been so big, so quick to evolve or so widespread. The media's role has rarely been more critical than in this era of fake news."
News Corp has dropped paywalls on its Corona content and is now offering new subscribers free access for 4 weeks. But these are extraordinary times. And that's also reflected in how the news is being produced.
The empty newsroom, putting out The Age while in lockdown.
For the first time in their long history, both the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age have been produced remotely, leaving their newsrooms empty. Radio has also moved out into makeshift studios, with many broadcasters, including 2GB's Alan Jones and Ray Hadley, phoning it in, as are the hosts at Melbourne's 3AW.
Today I'm broadcasting from home. Most of our people will be broadcasting from home by the end of the week. We're doing that because we want to stay on air. We need to stay on air. We need to talk.
But just as we're relying on the media more than ever and consuming more and more of it as we sit at home in isolation, some newsrooms are sadly being forced to close.
Small regional newspapers across Australia, some of which have been operating for more than a century, have started to close their doors as the economic reality of the coronavirus shutdown hits home. With country businesses closing, advertising revenue has collapsed, and it's proving to be the final nail for many local mastheads.
In Broken Hill, in far west New South Wales, readers woke up to this on their doorstep last Thursday.
Stop press.
Barrier Daily Truth will suspend daily printing operations from Saturday.
After an incredible 122 years, Broken Hill's only daily paper has shut down its presses and sent all 30 staff to Centrelink because the coronavirus has killed off almost all its local advertising. Management told us the choice was to keep losing up to $10,000 a day or stop production until the crisis is over and thereby have some chance of staying in business.
In order to survive and come out the other side of this crisis, we need to take some tough measures, and we're doing this obviously as a last-ditch effort.
Further south, in Victoria, Mildura readers woke up to a similar front-page splash on Wednesday.
Stop the press.
Sunraysia Daily to cease printing.
Sad day for democracy.
That paper was celebrating a century in operation. But with local and national advertisers pulling their ads and taking away 70% of revenue, there wasn't enough money to print the paper. 3 other regional titles owned by the same group have also closed up. Managing Director Ross Lanyon told MediaWatch he'd been forced to lay off around 70 staff. He hopes they'll return when the crisis is over.
We are resilient businesses. We've been through a lot. We're steeped in newspaper history, and I still believe in this town there needs to be a voice in a newspaper. And I'll be doing everything I can to get it back.
In Victoria's Gippsland, the owners of the 145-year-old Yarram Standard and the 130-year-old Great Southern Star have also stopped printing. And Australian Community Media, which runs 14 daily papers across Victoria, New South Wales, the ACT and Tasmania, may be forced to follow. Last week, CEO Alan Williams urged staff to take leave and warned that cuts will come.
This is now a matter of urgency. ACM is facing the most difficult time in its history. We must reduce our costs to counter the downturn in revenue.
And he told MediaWatch,
our owners and the executive management team are considering every option to ensure the business can weather the storm.
Sadly, the pandemic could be the breaking point for many titles. As Adam Portelli from the Journalists Union told the ABC,
the same mastheads that were able to survive world wars, depression, drought, after a week, 2 weeks of this current crisis, have fallen over or very close to falling over.
And why is that? Because in those bad old days, local papers were far healthier. In 2020, many were already teetering on the edge. So, will the government bail them out? Well, small business tax relief will help, and an innovation fund set up last year for small and regional news operators still has $40 million to spend. But help is needed fast. As Mumbrella's Tim Burrows noted,
I've spoken to a couple of people who said it must be great times for newspapers, or it must be great times for online publishers at the moment because everyone's looking.
Yes.
But of course, that doesn't actually matter, does it, if there's nobody advertising?
And it's not just the little guys that could fall. Some of the biggest operators are also struggling with a loss of revenue.
News Corp flags redundancies. Executives take pay cut due to COVID-19.
Executive Chairman Michael Miller said the company would look at reducing costs across the entire business by making more staff part-time, encouraging annual leave, introducing 9-day fortnights and forced leave over Easter.
Meanwhile, subscribers are already fleeing Foxtel and Kayo, both owned by News Corp, as sport shuts down around the nation. And the AFL, NRL and a host of other competitions blow the final whistle. And free-to-air TV is not looking much better. At Nine, which had already promised to cut costs by $100 million before the virus hit, the collapse in advertising threatens to slash revenue and has cut the share price in half. Social distancing rules have also stopped production on The Block and impacted other top-rating reality shows, The Voice and Ninja Warrior. Meanwhile, Seven is in even more trouble. Production of its big bet shows like Plate of Origin and Big Brother is still going ahead for the moment, but it has lost the AFL, and the Olympic Games in Tokyo, worth hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising, has been postponed. Today, you could have bought the entire network on the stock market for $115 million, roughly 1/40th of what West Australian newspapers paid for it in 2011. Only 18 months ago, Seven was flying high. Now it's in talks with its bankers and may well be at their mercy. But finally, on a lighter note, let's round up some coronavirus cliches, and one in particular that's been going viral.
Unfortunately, it just becomes a floating Petri dish.
We all know schools are a Petri dish.
Cruise ship environments are the perfect
it's a floating
Petri dish.
It's daycare, which, as we know, it's a Petri dish of germs.
A Petri dish, in case you don't know, is something you use in a lab to grow stuff like germs. And since schools and cruise ships are also great breeding grounds for bugs, what better word to use? Which is why the ABC's political editor Andrew Probyn grabbed at the phrase last week with this question to the PM.
Aren't schools now human Petri dishes for a virus? What would you do if there is an outbreak at a school?
And what did the PM reply? He objected to the use of the phrase, especially in relation to schools.
I think it's very important, Andrew, that media don't use that sort of alarmist language. I don't think it helps. I would encourage more modest language on these sorts of issues.
But I'm afraid to say he's a little late for that. The horse has bolted, the cat is out of the bag, the die is cast, the way is set, the damage is done. Because journalists, teachers, scientists and doctors have all decided that this is the go-to phrase.
Schools can often be a bit of a petri dish for germs.
We know where the children are. They're not in shopping centres like mobile petri dishes.
Your wallet is essentially a petri dish.
Whatever happened to breeding ground or incubator? And how about test tube, nursery or fertile soil? Nope, whether you're in Sydney...
It's a petri dish down there, particularly in hotspots like Bondi.
Or Melbourne.
What's happening with the Grand Prix is we are creating a petri dish.
Or Kalgoorlie.
So we're a little waiting petri dish for all these people to come.
Or around the world, it is the metaphor of the moment.
As we heard one of the relatives say that their family members were held hostage in a petri dish. It's a terrible situation.
Held hostage in a petri dish. Wow, you can't get much worse than that. Not even being locked down in a test tube. And that's all from us tonight. You can read more on our website. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday on your favourite social media platform. But for now, until next week, goodbye.